This is going to be about how you can work with your child at home and have them do some of the most important basics that will help them a lot in the classroom, especially when they come back, or especially for you guys when you're testing for your next belt. Remember, one of the things we are very, very particular about is that you have very good basics, and that involves having good alignment, and I'm going to explain that in a moment. Right? But it also involves having very good footwork, even though it's primarily pivoting in place, and again I'm going to explain that in a moment a little bit more. Right? But all of this, we highly recommend that you practice this against resistance. In other words, somebody should be punching you, or we use usually these what we call focus bags. Right? This is a focus bag, and you've seen it in class. If you've been at our school, it's very common. Most schools have these. So that way you can hold them for certain strikes, and you can hold them in different angles. They're very convenient. And you can also use them to attack with. And the reason why we attack with the bag is because we need to test whether or not our students are able to truly hit with enough force. Right? It's going to be unpleasant if you do it without any padding. There's going to be bruising, and the child is going to not feel as unencumbered to actually use full force, right? So a bag encourages you to really go for it and have, a good alignment. That is, the arm has to be in the proper angle. The strike should not be round, so that then, that would give you too much stress on your shoulder, and it would also be weaker. Right? So we've taught all of you guys how to do these blocks, but we're going to reiterate that, so that way they don't get practiced wrong. It's a very common thing for especially children to do this block in the wrong angle and not have the arm aligned properly. The problem that is going to occur then in the long run is that student will not become confident. They're not going to understand that they have the force to actually withstand a strike, and then they will not feel like they're succeeding. So it's very important that we get this right. Children can do this just as easily as adults. You've seen us do it in class all the time, and we emphasize that even more than the memorization of sequences at first. All right? So if you don't have a bag and you're stuck at home right now, I just had an idea that might work for you all, because I think you will be able to MacGyver this. That's, ask your grandparents what the MacGyvering means. So anyhow, garbage bag, some pants or something, any clothing, right? And there you go. You now have a punching bag for your child, okay? And I'm sure you guys can all get creative. You can wrap this in a pillowcase if you want to, right? Don't have something too rough, because you don't want the student to scrape their skin. That's why they no longer use canvas punching bags, like the old boxing punching bags, right? Because kids get their skin scraped up, and then it's no fun. But this is an excellent bag, all right? So no excuse why you're not practicing at home and hitting the bag. All right? So one thing that you can work on that is very, very simple is to have the student step back into a fighting stance. Remember, a fighting stance and a neutral, both stance are the same thing, right? Have them step back into a fighting stance with the proper block. And so we're going to, I need to turn the camera off for a moment and give it to somebody to handle, so that way they can show, or we can show you, how you practice the feet together with the arm. All right? Before I go to that, do be aware of, if you're using an inward block, it should be traveling essentially in a straight line away from your body. It should not be circling. This is an aligned arm. The bone structure will do the work for you. If you're doing this correctly, you should be able to hit the student's arm so hard without them losing this alignment. You might push them out of the stance if you're stronger than they are, but you shouldn't be collapsing the arm. If you can push their arm over, the block is not being done correctly. Okay? Same thing applies for the upward block. You can see that. All right? It's not like this. This is not acceptable. It has to be upward in a 45-degree angle. It goes out in a 45-degree angle to the front. You first come up with your elbow tucked, and you then turn that. All right, so 1, 2. All right. The extended outward block comes across and does that. Watch it one more time. It comes across basically towards your other fist, and it then circles outward and torques. It torques to the front. Now the problem with this one is that When you do it in a horse stance, you're not aligned properly. You have to step back in order to have this alignment. So a good way to do this on a child at first in a horse stance is to have them block further out so that way they can feel the strength of this block. All right? That's not how you usually would do it. You would keep this tucked in more, but when you're in the fighting stance, that will all make sense. Okay? So that means that you should have your child step back with each one of those blocks, right? As well as a downward block, as well. Well, we did the upward and the extended outward already, right? So 4 basic blocks I would do with the student on a regular basis. It should be part of the warm-up maybe even. Not forever, but for a couple of weeks, couple of months. It's a really good way to get the right habits. Stepping back and then turning into a stance with an inward block, which is basically a first move of attacking, alternating maces, right? Somebody's pushing you, you're blocking on the outside of the arms, right? Stepping back, doing an extended outward block with that circle I was just talking about. All right, that's a little bit more difficult, right? Because it requires a little bit more coordination, right? Then stepping back with the upward block. That's a little bit easier again for most people, provided they think of the elbow tucked and then it turns over, all right? And then stepping back with a downward block. Just look at this arm, forget it. So I'm trying to leave the other arm hanging. It's just out of habit. I will involve this other arm. Don't have the beginning student work the other arm. It is too difficult, then they will never get good with this one, right? Just one arm. Looking at the feet or paying attention to the feet together with the arm is what is difficult here. We don't want to distract the beginning student with also worrying about the other arm. You will get a lower quality. Step back, downward block. It just basically starts here, it comes across your stomach, it makes a quarter of a circle. The elbow is bent at the end of execution. Right? It's just right past your hip. Right? And palm back. Right? So these are the blocks that are in blocking set. We have more. We have the push down block as well. Right? That's also in blocking set. All of those are a lot of fun to do with the student, especially with a young child, because they can do those very easily. They can do those very well. Once you get them to feel where the power is at. Right? Once you guys videotape that, if you're able to do that, and send it to us, we can confirm whether or not you're doing that correctly or not. Oftentimes what happens is that one of those blocks might be off a little bit, and we're going to tell you, well, try pushing him this way, so that way he's going to feel, how it's supposed to be done. All right? Give me a minute. Mr. Randy, can I have you?